Welcome back, everybody. Look who we have here again. Sucker 3000, the podcast owner of Women on Men, right? This podcast is hilarious. So I'm just taking this clip because when we had, the only reason we know about this person is because of the Whatever podcast, right? And since you want to go viral, we're going to help you go viral. There was a part in the conversation where Andrew was asking him, so are you telling me you've never heard submission in connection to relationship, in connection to dating, in connection to men and women coming together? He said, no, because that is misogynistic. On my podcast, we don't even talk about things like that. Women even don't even come up with words like that. Okay. Andrew follows on and says, so when you ask women what do they look for in a man or what do they like, they don't say assertive. They don't say assertive men. No, they don't bring up words like that. No, because that only comes up on misogynistic podcasts, right? That's what the host said of the Sucker Show. The host of the Sucker Show is also claiming women don't say that, right? Because he comes up with this ideas of giving them a scale on options of what they can choose, and then they rank the higher three and the lower three, right? What they would prefer in a man. Now, isn't it funny when he asked this woman talking about what she understands as masculinity, what would she put certain traits on a man, and she said, honest as she can be, that, you know, she has a viewpoint on it, and sometimes it's difficult because there are some kind of stereotypes that society has built on. Well, we'll take that, okay. But for her is about assertiveness. An assertive man would be equal to an, masculine man. Now wherever this topic is going, I'm just here to key down. Didn't he say these kinds of words don't come up on his show? Women don't say these kind of words. They don't describe these kinds of words. But are we not all speaking English? Or am I deaf? Didn't she talk about assertiveness?
Welcome to Women on Men, the podcast where we explore masculinity through... That leads us to our first question. This is what I ask every guest, and this is not about stereotypes or anything. This is just your own definition. What does masculinity mean to you?
Wait a minute. I think this is going to get even better than I thought. First question, he said, this has nothing to do with stereotype. And anyone thinking I'm chopping off most important things, no, he was just introducing this woman, their relationship. She talked about how good they work together. You know, they're very understanding people at their good stuff. If you want to take a look, go on his channel. But we are here to dissect. He said, your opinion on masculinity, this has nothing to do with stereotypes.
Mm-hmm. So obviously I was thinking about this and I think it's so hard to separate it from the stereotypes.
Sure, exactly.
Because I do like kind of inherently, I think every person is made up of masculine energy and feminine energy.
Okay.
And so like those energies are naturally tied to certain character traits. So for me, by definition. So
please listen very careful, because as I said, this woman is going to be as honest as she can be. And she already said, you see, for me, this is how it's going to go. But it's difficult to separate, the stereotypes sometimes. And about stereotypes, if people want me to talk about that, I can make a separate episode to it. But listen carefully, because within what she said, we are going to get her point of view.
For me, masculinity is like being assertive. 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 For me, masculinity is like being assertive, or, for me, masculinity is like being assertive, or, for me, masculinity is like being assertive, or, unemotional, things of that nature, leadership qualities, where femininity, I feel like, is usually
Just in case no one heard it, I wanted to make sure assertive, assertive, assertive. That's a woman saying to her, that is what masculinity entails, being assertive. And now anyone who's going to be like, yeah, but they're not talking about relationship. Well, what do you think they're doing? They're talking about the dynamics between men and women. They're using her as a great example because she's been in a relationship since high school for a long time. And do you think she's going to pick a dumb man? No, she took an assertive man. That's why assertiveness is a key point to her, especially when we're talking about masculinity. Then she kept on and said, no hyper emotional reactions, right? So not him, not the host necessarily, but that also is a trait that she would add towards masculinity. Are we gonna sit here and pretend that that's not true? Of course it's true. This woman is saying the truth, not her truth, the truth.